The presidential election campaign is very nearly over. Before long, you and millions of your fellow Americans will be going to the polls to cast your ballot for the candidates of your choice. And in doing so, you will be demonstrating your faith in our democracy and America.
Messy.
No.
Hey, Larry.
Hi guys.
Yeah, we're just commenting on the breaking news. So
I found that the phrase "defendant Trump" to be quite soothing.
yeah, well, I don't know. I was talking to Dustin earlier, and he's of the opinion that this is all just a theater constructed by the CIA to keep people, amused while the real work is going on behind the scenes. And I don't know if he's too far off. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I watched these. I guess I tuned to MSNBC mainly to hear the reports because I know I'm familiar with those people, and I hear them do the same old shtick all the time, and I think, why don't you just let the court do its business and tell us about it later? That you are influencing the trial. You are doing this, and so is Fox News on the other side. That you're the. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know anything about this that I haven't heard from the media. I mean, I don't have any direct access. They don't. I can't get the C-SPAN anymore. Where I'd like to just put a camera on the hearing and let me watch it and let me decide for myself. But all we've got is frick and frack, Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
A lot of speculation about what may happen, what the timeline's like, how long it take, what the defense might be, why it's a good defense, why it's a bad defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing we do have is the actual indictment that we can read.
Yeah.
That's interesting, but yeah, it's going to be. Here's the thing that got me thinking. Whenever, it's all this about when is the trial going to take place, before, after the election, whatever. I don't think it matters too much, because if he's found guilty, let's assume the court does this job and they find him guilty of something, he's going to go out immediately on the courthouse steps and say, it's unfair, it's biased, I'm filing an appeal, and I'm taking it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Waiting to see what happen.
Yeah, where Clarence Thomas will set me free, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get too excited about it. Try not to. Dustin keeps telling me, don't quit watching that. Just don't watch anymore. That's all they want is for you to put your eyes on the screen, and just don't watch it. I don't know whether. That's the other thing, is I can talk about this forever and we can discuss it, but we don't really influence it in any way. It's not like they're putting up two stories and wondering how many people will go for this one and how many people. No, I already know which way everybody's going. You have the left, the right, and I don't give a shit in the middle. So it's. I don't know whether watching it and staying informed of it is really is that my responsibility as a citizen to keep up with this hearing and this trial and everything? Am I being negligent if I don't? I used to think that about things like in Watergate. I thought, well, it's important. I need to watch this. I really, it's important for me to see what's going on. But these days, you don't get that firsthand stuff. I remember clearly in Watergate when I've forgotten his name, but the guy who testified and informed them that there were tapes in the Oval Office. I watched that live. Yeah, I watched that live. I said, "Holy shit, they got tapes!" And that was a real turning point. But we don't get that kind of inside information. We just get talking heads. So
yeah.
Well, for tonight, did you have a chance to listen to the podcast, episode 3? Okay.
Yeah.
I sent a copy, in case you want. I sent a copy of the transcript of it to you, and I think it's interesting, particularly because in mentioning this to Dustin, I immediately realized he didn't know anything about this at all. This was in 1964. He had no idea. Well, we got Dave coming in here.
All right.
Yeah. Or Sue.
Boy named Sue.
A boy named Sue. There. Dave, are you there? Got you.
Yes.
There you are. There you are. Well, welcome. Glad to see you.
Yeah.
Well, did you happen to have time to take to listen to the Rachel Maddow podcast?
I've not done any of this homework, so
Okay, well that's okay. I wanted you to participate anyway because
the kids are here from out of town,
right,
grandkids and so on. So
right.
I've been.
Well, I was just commenting that the thing that's interesting to me about it, I spoke with Dustin earlier tonight, and the topic relates to the 1964 election, and just a quick summary is in this 64, of course, was Johnson versus Goldwater, and the pressing issue at the time was the Civil Rights Bill, and the Johnson was running on that. Goldwater was opposing him, and in order to support Goldwater, the Republicans created something called the Eagle Eye program, which was basically recruiting poll watchers. And in fact, one of the things they did was they took out full-page ads in newspapers around the country, particularly in the South, warning Black voters about the perils that might occur at the polls. That if you have committed any, you have a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, or, you're late on your taxes or anything like that, you better not show up to vote because they're looking for you. And so this Eagle Eye group was created. And so what Maddow was focusing on was the fact that group is still, they don't call themselves that anymore, but that group is still active. And I think it's very interesting. I want to show you something that occurred to me in this process, and this is the. Can you see this? Okay, these are the results of presidential elections starting back in 1948, going up to present. But I focused on the years 1960 through 80. And the little graph there shows you the percentage of the vote. I know the Republican red doesn't really show up very well in red there, but that's the way the vote was distributed. And in that period of time, 64 to 68, and particularly going into 72, that was the McGovern race, the parties switched philosophies. Before 1964, the Democrat Party was the party of the South. We used to use the term the Solid South,
right,
to describe the fact that there was a voting bloc in the South of Democrats that Democratic candidates could just count on. They didn't even have to campaign in the South. But after 1964, that changed. The 68 election was very close. That was when Nixon prevailed over Humphrey. And that was the point of switch. After that, 72, that was the McGovern race where Nixon, who beat McGovern in 72. And 76 was kind of an anomaly because of all the Watergate corruption. 80 was the beginning of the Reagan era. So this period of time saw the allegiance of a certain group of people switch from one party to the other. And now we have a Republican Party that relies very heavily and is even controlled by, and I don't want to mince words about it, the racist part of the American population. There is a group of people, and I would say 20 to 30% of folks who do not believe that races are equal and should not be equal. They fervently are white supremacists. Some of them are blatantly so and will tell you so. Others will not say it out loud, but they are anyway. There's a certain group of people who do not believe, because of their racial prejudice, they do not believe in democracy the way democracy might be defined by folks on the left, that not everyone should vote. Certain people should not vote. They're not capable of making good decisions. I wanted to get your take on that, because one of the things about this is, in studying history, we all lived through this history. We saw it happen. And those folks that I was referring to, that small percentage of people who have shifted their allegiance, they saw that history happening too. And their takeaway apparently was much different. You know, they saw the ascendancy of Black people as a threat, an existential threat to their way of life and their beliefs. And they're still with us. And I don't know that we see today's division in the country that way. I mean, the division is not between the 60% of people in the middle. Most of us tend to agree with our neighbors and friends, even if they might vote a different way than we do. We agree on what the desired outcome should be. We think people should be treated equally, that they should be judged on the basis of their character and their merit, and that we should, while we may not always have equality of outcome, that's a desirable goal, to have equality of outcome. So most of us agree. There are folks who don't agree with that. And now we're saying that the public is divided in half, and that's not really true. We're not split in half. We're split in three pieces. And the one big piece in the middle is constantly being shifted by the extreme. So that's what I'm taking away from this. I'm going to stop the share now and shut up and let everybody else comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my first question is: Do you see that transition? Is my point valid? Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I saw it happening. The switch in what the most conservative party was took place over those years, as you pointed out.
Lyndon Johnson made that. I'm sorry. You go ahead, Steve. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Lyndon Johnson made that statement when the Civil Rights Act was passed, that they've lost the South for a generation.
Mm-hmm.
And that served to be true, and then some. I was listening to it was Gwen Ifill, I think, in the Rachel Maddow audio there. And there's Stan.
We're talking about the podcast and focusing, since it focuses on the 1964 election and the creation of the Eagle Eye group. The fact that
Evil Eye.
It could be Evil Eye, that is still occurring now. So, Larry, I'm sorry to interrupt what you're saying.
No problem. In the Rachel Maddow thing, I was listening to the Gwen Ifill comments about how when Trump came along, he did not create this. These attitudes toward race and toward supremacy and toward just a feeling of either denied entitlement, I guess, among some white folks, and that Trump was merely the accelerant.
Mm-hmm.
He unleashed, and she said, gave permission for large groups of people to express things that they had felt suppressed to express before, and consequently, those people have elected members of Congress in their states who reflect those views and have joined lockstep. It's as though the things haven't changed since '64 so much as they have been suppressed, I guess, and it's all been lying there sort of in a latent state. And now it's come out, and it's maybe it's time for it to come out. Maybe it's time for us to deal with it and its consequences, because it wasn't really dealt with prior to this, and it's disturbing for sure. But nonetheless, as Robert Reich had a title to one of his epistles the other day was that is this civil war, or is it time to lance the boil?
Yeah.
So that may be this the turning point where we are.
Yeah, I wonder whether this is going to be a little more open declaration of one's beliefs in this the next election cycle, because the Ku Klux Klan wore hoods not because the people on the bottom tier of their socioeconomic group wanted to. It was because the aristocrats wanted to. They wanted to do it. They just didn't want to be seen doing it. So, Dave, what's your take on that regarding this movement of this particular group of folks from one side to the other? What do you recall about that?
Well, Larry, I thought you were right on, and I was thinking the same thing. I came here as a Vista volunteer, Iowa to Baltimore inner city training, and I landed here in actually about '64. So I remember Johnson and how excited we were that it's the creation of an entirely new society, the Great Society. But I recall vividly Johnson's warning that it's going to be a generation. And when you think about it, I was then about 25. So my generation, our generation, is still caught in that aftermath web. But I think I don't know. The racial divisions I think they're really, really deep and complex. And I think of people like my cousin in Iowa, who was Republican, but a moderate Republican. He was one of those middle roaders, my dad, him, Democratic uncle or two. They all got along. They pretty much agreed in general, just who do you select? And some were a little more conservative, some were maybe a little more liberal in general. That has all changed. There's people like me that kind of still sit in that general middle, but I think we're very few these days. But I think my cousin's kids, this Republican couple, good Catholics, all of that, all the kids remain good Catholics. And here there are 7 of them. They're all Republican, and they all say, they live mostly in the Chicago, Minneapolis area. None of them stayed home on the farm. The second oldest has just been appointed the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Dubuque. He's the only liberal in that family, and that's part of St. Francis. St. Francis, maybe that's it. Pope Francis's work in setting the stage with people who are open-minded and want to. I think Francis is a deep, deep progressive in setting the stage with people like my cousin's kid. But the others say essentially this: we got ours through hard work. We worked hard on the farm. We went through school. We had to pay our own way and work there too. There were too many kids to be supported by a farm family. We got ours, and here we are in Chicago watching this stuff, and we're saying, why can't Black people, this is essentially what they're saying, why can't they climb their way up like us? Now, one of the kids married a half white, half Black guy. And my uncle and aunt, my cousin, their parents, he was really upset about whether both of them were. But when they met him, they accepted him and became part of the family. So I'm looking at them as kind of bellwethers of young professionals. Now they're in their 50s they're saying, and maybe it's not, blacks don't have every right to be equal citizens, but why can't they dig their way out and do what we did? Now, that's a complicated thing. It isn't racism per se, although that hovers, I think, in all of us in little ways. It may be, and the fear of blacks getting their revenge, or suddenly you look at Louisville, what's going on here, and the black legislators, and a lot of they are wanting to put a lot of money in the West End and recreate the West End. It's kind of a journey back to equity. So there's a lot of individual things going on in there that I think most people, maybe even some that you would think are kind of racist, are trying to work through all this. It's a gradual process. I don't know where we are. I don't know how the statistics, when you said that, that there's a quarter or third of the people who are deeply racist. I don't know where you're citing that, but I think there's levels and there's all kinds of individual stuff going on in there that makes it look like these people are racist, but maybe it's something else or complicated. That's going on and on about what I want to portray is the complexity of what's going on now, which is what I think's happening.
Well, I tend to agree with you. The reason I use race is because that's the underpinning for parts of this. But I would go back to the book that we I guess it's been a year now. We discussed caste, and I think caste is probably more germane to this, because it's the idea that if everybody votes, then people who your folks might describe as undeserving because they haven't bootstrapped themselves, they're going to take from me without giving in. In other words, we come to the potluck dinner and everybody brings something except a certain party. And now they want to take as much as the rest of us, even though they haven't brought anything to the table. And I think that's more appropriate for this than just saying race. But I think what happens is there's a coalition formed of people who believe that way, and people who are genuinely racist. And because they agree that we should not give welfare to folks, they bond together. So we have, they say politics makes strange bedfellows. So that's part of it. Stan, let's get you engaged in this. I don't know if you had time to look at or listen to the podcast. Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the question was about that premise regarding the eagle eye, and it's still happening today. Is this something that is going to continue into the future? Is this something I don't know exactly how to address this, but it's the irony is it's still happening as it was in 1964. It's still occurring, and now it's been codified in a lot of ways through the courts and legislatures. So, what was your take on it?
Well, yeah, the premise of the piece seems to be that what's happening today is nothing new. It's been happening, and the most obvious example is '64, and that it continued. I mean, I know with Nixon's campaign advisor, that evil son of a bitch, he said, "You can't say nigger, just say busing," and use these code words that imply that that's the problem is with black people. And so it's the premise seems to be it's been going on, and it's probably going to continue. I don't know if they offered any alternatives or ways to stop it. But I'm also I don't like the idea of saying that if you're all Republicans are evil, and and that this is. I mean, they say 74% of Republicans still support Trump. Is it because they're racist? Is it because I I agree with David. It's complex, and I'd like to, we're talking more about. I mean, we kind of obscure the individual differences with these generalizations, and I think in some ways Rachel Maddow is, like she wants to present things that will appeal to liberals and progressives, and reconfirm our biases that the problem is with Republican racists. I mean, there's the history is factual and it's true, but but saying that people support Trump because Trump allows them to express their degenerate selves is a little, it's not going to get us anywhere.
Uh,
Pointing them at saying, look at them, how bad they are. Let's shine up our halos and carry on. It's I guess I was a little bothered by that, but it is a problem. It's definitely a problem. And I was shocked at Rehnquist that he was one of these people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was,
and he became the Supreme Court justice. My God,
yeah.
talk about insidious, deeply rooted. It is shocking.
But we were saying before you joined us that the context of this was in the 1960 election. It was the Democrats who were, if the election was stolen, and a lot of people said it was the Democrats who stole the election. There was nefarious activities happening in Chicago and in West Virginia, where there were obvious attempts to skew this for Kennedy. And so the creation of this group was based on the experience that the Republicans had of, hey, these guys are, playing dirty tricks over here. And they said, well, we can do the same thing. So the Republicans tend to be more long-term in their thinking. So they have prolonged this idea and had it morph over the years into, the election was stolen this last time. Well, there are people who are ready to believe that it was stolen. They're ready, they want to believe that it was stolen because they don't trust the system. And this group we're talking about, they shifted. The people who are in, wearing the red hats now were endorsing Kennedy back in 1960. They were solid South Democrats, and they've shifted. And while I agree that I don't think all Republicans are racist, I think if you are a racist, you're more likely to go with the Republicans than you are with the Democrats.
Yeah.
So
the Democrats were the racist party, and until Johnson started advocating, Kennedy advocated for it, Johnson even stronger, and that drove Southern Democrats to the Republican Party because they didn't want to give up segregation.
Yeah.
And then that's a real shame. But so it was the 60 election that the Republicans thought was stolen, right? Yeah. And so because and so the Eagle Eye was an attempt to remedy, but it wasn't. It was just it was a way to intimidate and to suppress the vote. So this is what they said it was, but what was it really? I don't know where this is going to go. David Brooks had a piece today in the New York Times about let's take a look in the mirror to see why is there so much resentment amongst these people in the working class and the lower middle class, and it could be because liberals have created a system that reinforces and supports liberal values, and that these people all feel like they've been left out, and then they say, well, what's the solution? Well, maybe we have to lance the boil, and that implies, we've been talked about that, but we have another civil war or whatever. I don't know, hope not, but I don't know, guys. I've talked enough.
Steve, is anything different? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
Well, has everybody had a chance to speak? So, because I was going to something related to this, but Steve, you were very short in your comments. If you want to.
No, I don't have anything to elaborate. I think we're
Go ahead, Dave.
I'll tell you one. Well, then let me go ahead for just a bit. One of the most impressive articles I've read recently, and again, it's New York Times, dated actually back to July 10th. Linda Greenhouse, who was a long time highly respected New York Times reporter, and many other significant jobs, just highly respected. She had an interesting reflection on, if you think of the last 18 to 20 years, well, the period, well, if you go back to when William Rehnquist came in as the Republican, and he became the Supreme Court head, right? Chief Justice. She offers this kind of look. It's during that time, despite that Republican leader, the conservative wish list that greeted him over that 18-year period actually overturned. That was Roe versus Wade, private gun ownership became, let's see, overturned. Well, let's see, 18 years ago, overturned. This is Rehnquist. Overturned Roe versus Wade. Reinterpret the Second Amendment to make private gun ownership a constitutional right. That was passed that period. Eliminate race-based affirmative action in university admissions. Change. That was created. Well, not eliminate, but confirm it during that period of time. Elevate the place of religion in the legal milieu, and curbing some power of regulatory agencies in that process. Basically, she's saying that Rehnquist, despite that, that's when the great positive changes were made. I think I screwed up part of that. But all these liberal things were passed. Then 20 years later, Roberts comes in, and the Supreme Court, 18 years later under Roberts and the new conservatives, have managed to change most of those back again. Roe versus Wade is gone now. Affirmative action is gone.
Voting Rights Act is gone.
Gun rights have actually been more open, more prominent through the Supreme Court actions, and then on and on. So the contrast there is what's happened to reverse the positive stuff over a very short period of time. So where is it going from here? And of course, she's full of questions. My own feeling about this is that I don't think race is going to be a big issue. And I've seen it listed in surveys, and it comes quite far down the list of concerns of average Americans. You know, more and more, I think people are accepting. We got Black people. Nobody is amazed that a white person is married to a Black person these days. I think much more acceptance on all kinds of people, and the polls say this, in terms of gay marriage and so on. So what are going to be the issues coming ahead? What is going on? If it's not race, is it just a challenge between the right-wing conservatives who want to maintain the textualism of the founding fathers? You know, that's what they really want. Go back to what the Constitution says. Well, they said, you know, a well-regulated militia. Well, that's a sideline. You know, the right to bear arms. Doesn't matter if it's a rocket launcher or a muzzleloader. So how is this all going to come out? What are going to be, what do you guys think are the real issues going to make this election or not? Is it all of that stuff? Is there something more prominent? Is it just,
Well, Dave, I think what happens is there is a coalition formed on each side. And this seems to be something we're losing now. It used to be when we had conventions, and I'm one who wants the conventions to come back with real authority. I want to do away with the primaries as the determinative factor. You still have primaries to be a preference primary. That's what it used to be. This is your preference primary, but that doesn't mean that you count up the primary votes and you're the candidate. That changed in 1972, and that was a mistake. That we should go back to a point where you gather various groups together, and if there's a group that wants to reinstitute segregation, they have a voice in whatever party they want, but they don't speak for the whole party. They speak for that contingent. And the idea of the convention is that you try to come to some agreement and put a candidate up who is most appealing to most folks. So the problem, as I see it, is the bifurcation here, that you're either this or you're that. And we're moving to the point where if you're a Republican, well, here are the things you believe. If you say you're a Republican, then I already know who you are and what you believe and what you're going to say. And if you're Democrat, I know who you are and I know what you're going to say. And that's where we've gone wrong. That we've put two camps together and there's no middle ground. There's no room for somebody to say, well, I agree with you on this and I agree with you on this. No, you can't be a successful candidate if you have some agreement with the other side. So you have to agree with them on abortion, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign policy, on environment, on all of those things, or you never become a candidate, which means you really don't believe in anything. You just believe in getting elected. So, Larry, I've left you out of here. I want to hear your comments on what Dave was suggesting, that we don't know where we're going from here. Unmute, Larry. There you are.
My wife passed through and I silenced her. If only it were that easy. One of the points that Dave made was that it's really a lot of gray when it comes to the issues of race, and that it's more likely to see a black person marry a white person today than it ever was, and it's probably more common to see an interracial marriage than it is to see an interpolitical marriage. People become so bifurcated that it's you're marrying a what? People don't bring home any other thing but one of those.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of where it's gotten to, and again, I think that, as I think we said before, is that the media has a very large stake in all this to really push these divisions. And each has its own side. I listened to Fox News the other day after the indictment came out, and it was all sort of milquetoast kind of stuff. They thought it was just a bad thing, and it was just all that side. MSNBC is all that side, and nobody was really playing the realism game, I felt. So I don't know where it's going, but I think we shouldn't leave out the culpability and the profit motive that the media possesses.
Fox News was all about Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at it, persecuting this poor man, Trump, and Hunter Biden gets away with murder.
That's right.
As if their ill deeds are equivalent. That's what they do. Fox News just diverts, and
I made a comment to a friend about this, the fact that they say that, I think Trump just said the other day that Biden is a stupid son of a bitch, and then I realized that if Biden is such a mass criminal, he's an arch criminal next to Capone, they can't find any evidence against him, and yet Trump leaks evidence out of every orifice. And yet Trump is and Biden is the stupid one.
But
So,
followers, Trump supporters don't seem to care about evidence.
that's right.
They
That's
just want to. I guess this goes back to that point that when peacemaking is Trump's giving people permission to and encouraging people just to dive deeply into their prejudices and just express those, and they have a whole bunch of people behind them saying, "Right on," you know. So
I have a cousin who who voted for Trump twice, but said that she wouldn't vote for him again. Didn't want to run, wouldn't vote for him again. As soon as he was indicted, she's all in.
I hope there's more. I mean, they keep citing this at the Siena.
She's all in to vote for him. That's
Really?
the thing.
The indictment got her. The indictment changed her mind.
Well, yeah, it's it's a huge injustice of some undescribed amount.
Mm.
Some of the polls indicated that that Trump was being less supported, that there's more of those generally middleist conservatives who are saying, you know, we can't do this anymore. They're getting tired of him and his ways of doing things. Now, whether it's enough to make a big difference, you know, everything I've read is the indication is that because Biden is as aged as he is and this and that, and, you know, he can't put two words, he's like me, he can't put three words together and form a sentence. You know, two old men up against each other. You know, the Democrats are really going into this election, I think, hobbled by, you know, like ho hum. There are some good people out there, and I wish somebody younger and somebody more, you know, presidential, whatever, would come in. So I think the Democrats are really hampered on that end. But on the other hand, Trump's craziness, which is beginning to get to anybody who's a reasonably modest thinker, they don't like Trump. So this sounds like such a wild card, such a weird. Have we ever had a looming presidential election that's shaping up the way it is? You know, two 80-year-olds, you know, going at each other with their canes and their walkers. Is it? You know,
Well, you know, one of the things that I observe as I watch various media, and I spent quite a lot of time during the pandemic just thinking about the media and watching different news sources and reading different news sources, and you know, trying to assess what's going on. And the one thing that I want to see that I'll never see is a true debate on TV where you have opposing sides. There are rules of engagement that don't allow you to simply spout things that have no basis, that you know you could be challenged on the facts you're presented. And what I think is important now, because we're never going to see that with politicians anymore, because that's not how they get elected. I want to see Sean Hannity debate Rachel Maddow. I want to see Laura Ingraham go up against, you know, you pick whoever you like here.
What if Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow have more in common than we realize?
Well, they probably do. They probably do. They definitely do. They're both after ratings, and they're both know who their audience is, and so forth. But if you could pit the two of them together, limit the topic, and structure it in such a way that you couldn't go off onto some kind of crazy land, that you had to focus your attention on the topic, and then let everybody in America vote on who won the argument here. Yeah. Punch the button, key it in. I'd like to see that every night of the friggin' week, and put different people on and let them debate it. Let people who are not running for office debate the issues and put things out there. Let's hear what these things are. That's what's missing. That's what's missing in democracy.
They get more benefit out of using rhetorical tricks and ad hominem attacks and stuff. They get more mileage out of that than they do.
They do, but we don't. That's what I'm saying is they get it. They get viewers.
The supporters do too. Their supporters want to see their guy get the other guy.
Well, what they want to see is not what I'm asking for. What's good for democracy is what I'm asking for, and that's to hear both.
Get them to do that.
Well, here, you know, a challenge. You know, let's make it live TV. I think it would be the most popular show on television if they did it. I think it would pass the Super Bowl
Sounds
terms of
boring to
winning.
me. I want to see them get each other. I want to see them in the
Well, they can
trenches.
arm wrestle afterwards if you want, but
You heard that DeSantis has challenged Harris to a debate on race, on the race.
Barbara Harris.
history.
mm,
Wait a minute.
he gets.
Oh,
He's a
maybe
smart guy. He's a smart guy, but he'd get his clock cleaned in that one.
You would, but you know, who's to say? He knew she would refuse. You know, all he has to do
positioning
is just,
himself for vice president, isn't he?
that's right. So maybe that's just a prelude to the fact that he knows he's not going to win, and he has to keep supporting Trump to stay in as number
Mhm.
two. Trump has derided him over.
Yeah.
What do you think of the idea that I still don't understand why so many people support Trump, and I still don't understand what the hell they think he's going to do for them because he hasn't done anything. I don't know what they expect him to do. And so, what do you think of the notion that basically he's allowing them to let their ids out? You know, that they're tired of being polite, they're tired of being reasonable, they're tired of, and they keep seeing these undeserving people be pushed to the front of the line in their opinion, and they're just fed up with it, and they want to let everybody know how disgusting. I mean, it started with the attack on political correctness, and now it's the attack on wokeness and the attack on this and that, and it's just, these people are just tired of they just want to scream, you know, and shout and feel good about it. I can understand it.
It's war. It's a kind of war, you know.
Yeah.
And this is my champion, you know. It's
Yeah.
I think it's more of a misclassification here. These are not conservatives. These are reactionaries.
Yeah.
Look at all the issues. The Republicans are not proposing anything. What they're doing is objecting to and opposing things. It's
Yeah.
not that they want to, want to do something about gender equality. It's they don't want this. It's not that they don't, they're telling you what they don't want. And the reason they support Trump is because that's exactly what he does. He calls people names and ridicules people who he disagrees with. And they love to hear that because in their churches and in their, their social contacts, they can't be as blatant as he is. And so he leads the way and says, yeah, you see that guy shaking like this? He's just, make fun of crippled people. That's okay. We don't like them. Make fun of the immigrants, that they're all rapists and drug pushers, because we don't like them. So he sanctions them and gives them that ability. They don't love Trump. They hate us.
There's some people love Trump. It gets back to the idea that Republicans are successful by encouraging people to fight against some wrong, whereas Democrats are trying to solve problems, and that's just boring. It's more emotionally satisfying to have an enemy that you have to fight.
Right.
To solve a problem, you got to think. For God's sakes, who wants to do that?
Yeah. Well,
here I am being a liberal elite with my college education.
There you go, Stan. We've got you pegged.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, Joe Biden has been boring, and I like having a boring president.
Yeah, that's just some people say.
Actually doing things, So I hope that we can all, Dave, to your point, I think I would rather see somebody else in the race, but at this point in time, I think it's too late for someone to emerge. And
I wish we could have Bernie in there, and that he could be.
Well, Bernie suffers the same thing. He's older than Biden is, so
well, he's an old man, but he's the one he thinks wonderful. I mean, his head's in, marvelous shape. I mean, he's word on. You just read his stuff, and he says, "My God, this guy's got everything lined up." That's my impression.
It's hard not to disagree with him, not to agree with him, but I like Buttigieg. I'm saying
Buttigieg. Yeah.
He's got that scarlet G on his chest, but he's very, very, very smart and very cool in public confrontations. And
another one I liked is
he's
Amy.
Young. He's not old.
Who's a Democrat who's wins in that band of moderately conservative southern Minnesota. That's her stronghold right in there. And I was very impressed with her performance too. She got all the legal background, as well as a lot of experience in there. And maybe, somebody like that, I always thought that Klobuchar would have a very good chance to heal because of the appeal that Republicans, she appeals to these moderate Republicans in a way that I don't think any one of the other Democratic candidates did. There's just something there. So if you want a middle of the roader who can stand on both sides of that bell-shaped, the vast people in the middle, maybe. But she's not going to run. I mean,
No.
so
Unless something happens to Biden, nobody's going to
yeah.
much.
According to this poll, Biden's support is better at this point in the campaign than it was in 20.
Yeah.
Or his Democratic support is stronger than it was in 2020. So,
yeah. I think Biden will win if something drastic doesn't occur. If Trump is convicted, and there's a trial ahead of time, that's going to take all of the steam out of the election. We'll be talking more about the trial than we will about the campaign. Yeah. And that's the danger there is that if the Trump side manages to spin the story in their favor, that could tip the election. So if they speed up the trial and he's convicted before the election, I think that's going to be okay. If this thing is going on during the election, I agree. I think, Steve, with what you were saying before is it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a big mess.
Yeah. He's got 78 felony counts that he's been indicted on.
We just need one. Just one.
You think they'll be able to delay it till after the election?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of pundits are saying it's going to be the decision on Trump's going to come not in a trial, but in an election.
That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to manage to somehow or another postpone it, and it'll be less of an issue. But here's another thing. The economy ranks up there almost usually number one or number two. It's the economy, and the economy is working out very well for us and Biden. A softer and softer landing, and where's the recession? Well, now we're not even sure we're going to have one. If we can only maintain that, I think that's going to be a huge, huge factor.
A lot can happen in a year.
Biden, whether he's responsible for it, to the degree he's responsible for it, maybe very little really, but he'll get the credit for it. The way it usually works.
I think that the point that maybe it's better for the actual trial to not take place before the election, because like you said, it's going to suck all the air out of the room, and it will any other ancillary type issues or campaign promises or whatever are going to be muted. They'll just be submerged under the daily, today in this trial, so and so testified, and yada yada yada. And it'll really take emphasis off all the things that Biden is trying to run on.
Mm-hmm.
The trial supports the notion that this is a witch hunt and Trump's being persecuted. An election, what will that do? Will it be another supports the Democrats stole it again? I don't know. Can we have an election that people believe, that most people will believe is a valid?
If Trump's the candidate and he runs, he will claim he wins. It doesn't matter what the vote is. He will claim that he won and he's been cheated. That's all. That's part of his personality. I can't lose. I'm a winner. I'm not a loser. I can't lose.
I think he's overplayed that card so much.
Well, nobody believes it.
Republicans are just tired of that crap.
Yeah.
I think Pat quietly may. I don't think we'll see again what we saw. Is just.
But a majority of Republicans think the election was stolen. They think it was a fraud. they don't believe that Biden was legitimately, according to the recent polls, they don't believe that Biden was legitimately elected. Are they going to change their minds if Biden wins again? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think they can be convinced by the evidence that is being presented that it wasn't stolen. Now, whether they change their mind to the point where they would vote for Biden instead, no, I don't think they're going to vote for him. You know,
I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say they're going to vote for him no matter what. So there's a certain group there, but most Republicans, I don't believe those polls necessarily, because a lot of people who don't support Trump don't say so in public. You know, they want their friends to ostracize them over that issue.
They
So
don't need death threats.
yeah, you know, important things comes at the ballot, I guess. But
Polls do have their clay feet, and
yeah.
I hope so.
look at how Trump snuck in, and the polls mostly said not a chance.
Yeah.
Back the first time.
Yeah.
I think too that the media has to keep the possibility alive that Trump might win, to create tension and interest, and
Yeah.
if things keep pointing to the fact that he doesn't have a chance, then people will tune out. And they won't.
Well, they want to close. They want it to be They want it to be as tight as possible.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They
They want a horse race.
Yeah, well, you know, the last time was great for them because the election didn't get decided on election night. You know, we had to look more. We had to go for the episode 2 and go through the process again. You know, it's all been a big media. I was telling them earlier, Dustin talked to earlier tonight, and he said this is all just theater. You know, it was arranged by the CIA, and they're working with both parties just to keep the argument going, so people don't see what's really happening. You know,
Or just their institutions.
What, by the way, Mike, what's really happening?
What's really happening? Well, I'm going to send you a link to a video by Stephen Bartlett. Are you familiar with Stephen Bartlett? He is the #1 blogger in the UK, and he has a program that he did about artificial intelligence. The person he interviewed, whose name I can't handle, I heard it, but I can't pronounce it, an Egyptian guy who used to work at Google and quit working for Google because he said, we've fucked up. Those were his words. He said, we fucked up. We never should have allowed AI to go out on the open internet.
Yeah.
And according to this guy, the show was recorded about a month ago, and he said within the next 2 months, it's too late.
Wow.
The machines are already, he says they by whatever measurement, that artificial intelligence is already smarter than Einstein. And he says within a few short months, it will be 1,000,000 times smarter than Einstein.
So AI is taking over.
AI has already taken over.
The Earth is going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Trump's going to win.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, the effect of AI on the election.
Really?
Because,
yeah. Well, and on the campaigning and disinformation. Well, and
all AI does is analyze things like we're doing here. They go out and analyze discussions and comments on social media and all that stuff, and they put together, a consensus view. So which way is AI going to, ask AI who it's voting for. That'll be the question. So, yeah.